Welcome to this morning's live stream. I'm going to get started in a minute. Just letting everybody know that the stream is currently on the air. Yeah, I'm starting early on this one, Head Ninja. I'm going to be doing another one tonight as well, but really wanted to talk about this topic and just get it to really just talk about it in depth. Um, as everybody has heard, yesterday, former President Donald Trump was convicted of all charges as related to the case of falsifying business records in connection with hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. And as a result of this conviction, former President Donald Trump is the first president of the United States to be convicted of a crime, and as the first president of the United States to be convicted of a crime. This basically is a moment in history and possibly a moment in infamy for the United States government. Now, when it comes to the entire case against former President Donald Trump as related to these charges, this whole case really, I don't know if it really was about the charges as it was more about damaging the former president's credibility. Now, when it comes to former President Donald Trump, a lot of people don't seem to like former President Donald Trump. And this whole case basically was brought up on these charges, which were primarily misdemeanors, amped up to felonies by District Attorney Alvin Bragg. And these charges were basically amped up to felonies in an effort to make them appear to be more serious than they are. Because usually a case of falsifying business records is a misdemeanor, but with the entire 2024 election at stake, these charges basically are made to appear to be more serious, and they are basically made to basically damage the president's credibility as related to his poll numbers. Now, I am no Donald Trump supporter, and I'm not really looking to support anybody on either side of the aisle, whether it be on the left or the right. But objectively, when I take a look at this entire case, it really has some bad ramifications as related to the interpretation of the law. Now, this case basically, again, was one that was filed by Alvin Bragg because they were desperate to find something or anything as related to charges to put on this former president. And it was basically done because they wanted to find something that would basically destroy Donald Trump's credibility overall as related to his relationship with the American public as being seen as a respectable political figure. And this entire case, after getting this conviction in less than a day, basically seems more about damaging the president's reputation than it was about trying to find a serious crime that would discredit the president and make it where he wasn't qualified for office. Now, when I take a critical look at this entire case, it seems more like performative theater using the courts to try to sway public opinion by using the criminal courts. And that's what I see as related to this entire case. I really see a case where basically we had members of the Blue Party looking to participate in some performative theater using the courts and using that performative theater in an efforts to try to sway the court of public opinion against Donald Trump. Now, again, I am no Donald Trump supporter, but when I look at the entire situation, it just really seems like it's a very petty situation as related to our country. And it sets a bad legal precedent as related to our courts of law. Now, when it comes to our courts of law, if you can go out here and you weaponize them to go after a former president at the top because you don't like his political position, that can also be weaponized against the average everyday American. And that is one of the things that most Americans really aren't thinking about critically regarding this entire situation. What they really aren't thinking about regarding critically about this situation is that if they can go after a former president like Donald Trump that they disagree with, this same group of people in political power can go out here and abuse that power and use it to go against any individual in this country. This is what many on the right and the left aren't really thinking about regarding the interpretation of law that they put in place. And that's where it's very similar to what happened with Bill Cosby as related to that overzealous prosecutor, Kevin Steele. He basically went out here when he went after Bill Cosby and was so in his emotions about looking to convict Bill Cosby that he couldn't see that he basically destroyed the standard of law in this country, taking us from the interpretation of law, from rule of law, to the standard of trust and believe. And the standard of trust and believe was basically on the feelings of a woman, not really based on a standard of fact of rule of law as related to evidence. And in the case of Donald Trump, I see the same legal interpretation of law, where we're going from rule of law to basically, again, another standard similar to trust and believe, where it's basically an individual taking it where they can just bring up charges against anyone. And that really reminds me of what happened before the Revolutionary War in this country that led to us writing the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Because if anybody knows their American history, they know that King George basically was hosting all sorts of kangaroo courts. And inside of those kangaroo courts, they basically were putting people up on trumped up charges and if they couldn't get a conviction, they would try the person again. And this is what led to the entire constitutional standards as related to due process of law. And ironically and sadly, we are back to that standard in this country based on the conviction of Bill Cosby and now the conviction of Donald Trump, where people are like prosecutors are basically weaponizing the courts to go after individuals who they disagree with and not looking to go out and look to prosecute actual criminals. That's basically what Alvin Bragg is doing right now. What Alvin Bragg is doing right now is he's letting criminals run free on the streets of New York, but he's not going after actual criminals. No, he's looking to try to elevate his social status within the Blue Party. And as he looks to elevate his status within the Blue Party, he is not having regard for all of the crimes that are going on here in New York City. And while he's doing this, he basically destroyed the career of Jonathan Majors, and now he's trying to destroy the reputation of Donald Trump. But what he's going to run into is a big brick wall of white supremacy as related to Donald Trump, because with Donald Trump, the real situation is that with this conviction, he has not gone out here and swayed people to see Donald Trump as a less credible candidate. What he has done basically has energized his base, and he has made Donald Trump an even more popular candidate. Now, the reason why Donald Trump will possibly become a more popular candidate from my observations is because Joe Biden and the Blue Party have not really kept their promises. And even worse, they're following in the footsteps of Hillary Clinton back in 2016 and being completely tone deaf to the needs of we the people. Now, in 2016, Hillary Clinton was basically just so caught up in looking to be the first female president of the United States, that she really wasn't listening to we the people as related to what we the people wanted. And that basically was the main reason why she wound up losing the 2016 election, because most Americans were struggling and basically were dealing with the Great Recession. And all she was thinking about was being the first female president, thinking about how the office was going to serve her, not understanding how the job is about serving we the people. And this was just following in the footsteps of the narcissistic Barack Obama, who talked about hope and change, but most people didn't see their lives change for the better, and they weren't really into Barack Obama, who really didn't listen to people. And this is where Donald Trump started to become popular. And when I look at Donald Trump's popularity, it really reminds me a lot of the bad boyfriend that many girls go out here and date. But the reason why the girl dates the bad boyfriend is the reason why Donald Trump is so popular. And to understand why Donald Trump is popular, you have to understand family dynamics and people dynamics. And what's happening with Donald Trump that makes him popular is the fact that you have a group of politicians who are basically disconnected and detached from people and do not hear any of those people. And instead of looking to listen to those people, what they want to do is try to tell people what they believe they should want, instead of hearing what people want or telling them what they need. And again, it's very similar to the daughter who is not getting her emotional needs met by her father, a father who thinks that, oh, because I'm working on a job and I'm giving my daughter money, this means that I am meeting her needs, but he's not paying attention to her. He's not talking to her. He's not listening to what she says. And as a result of him emotionally neglecting his daughter, what the daughter does is go out and get involved with a bad boy because the bad boy, one, allows her to get attention from a man, unlike her father who was neglecting her, and two, a man that she believes will get her the attention of her father by participating in rebellious behavior. And in many cases, when it comes to that daughter who's not getting her emotional needs and attention from her father, what happens is, instead of the father going out here and looking to meet the daughter's needs, the father basically starts to get into a back and forth with the bad boy. And when he gets into the back and forth with the bad boy, what this does is make the daughter rebel even more, and it makes her desire the bad boy even more. And she desires the bad boy even more, the father becomes more and more angry, more and more frustrated, and doesn't really understand that the whole problem with his daughter is not with this bad boy. No, the problem with the daughter is the man not looking to meet the emotional needs of his daughter by going out and doing things like talking to his daughter and spending time with his daughter, because had he given his daughter attention, his daughter wouldn't be out here looking for a bad boy. But the whole problem is that because he's in his feelings about competing with another man, that he cannot see the needs of his daughter. And what happens usually is that the daughter basically becomes so attached to the bad boy, because this is the only way she can get attention, that the father never really meets the needs of the daughter, and the whole situation deteriorates into just constant hostility and back and forths, but nothing really is solved as related to the problem. That's what's going on here in America as related to Donald Trump. We have the Blue Party, which basically does not look to meet the needs of the American people, does not want to hear the American people, does not want to listen to the American people, does not want to pay attention to the American people, because Joe Biden is too busy with Ukraine. I mean, he's out here with Ukraine and ignoring the needs of American people who are already dealing with an economy that's filled with layoffs, from major companies that basically is like it is in a recession. And also we're dealing with high prices as related to inflation created by policies like his American screw job, American Rescue Plan. And we are dealing with economic competition from migrants. And instead of talking to we, the people, about our problems, what he does is go out here and tell you the economy is doing well, and then tells you as the economy is doing well, just doesn't want to listen to people. And again, this is textbook behavior from a dysfunctional individual like a beta male who again doesn't want to deal with the needs of the people because they don't want to deal with conflict. And that's what makes Donald Trump attractive to most people out here, because he's not afraid of conflict. As an executive, he deals with conflict every day. But you have the Biden administration that basically doesn't want to listen to people because it doesn't want to deal with conflict, because many of those people in the Blue Party, they have gotten really haughty and really arrogant, and they think that they know better than we, the people, and they think that they can go out here and talk at we, the people, instead of listening to we, the people. No, what they want to do is try to tell you what they're going to do for you in a very condescending fashion. And that's the thing that is alienating a lot of American people from the Blue Party and its candidates. What's really alienating people is the fact that they are extremely condescending, do not listen to the people, and want to try to just go out here and not give anything to we, the people. No, they don't want to listen to people. And again, this is where Donald Trump comes in like the bad boy, because the bad boy, what he does is he not only listens to the rebellious daughter, he also goes out here and gives the rebellious daughter the emotional support that she wants. He gives her the attention that she wants, and he also elevates her social status with all of the other women. And again, that's what makes Donald Trump an appealing candidate, is the fact that he basically is out here listening to these people and basically meeting their emotional needs and paying attention to them, something the Biden administration has not done on many issues. And this is why their approval rating is at an all-time low with American people. They're not being heard. And again, when I look at cases like the entire migrant situation, you had your own blue politicians like Eric Adams asking for help, and Biden basically ignored people in his own party, and those bootlicks basically sat there and let him ignore them, and the situation was getting out of hand. But you had, again, no real action, and you also had no action on inflation. Biden just basically sitting there. And again, this disconnection and detachment, this is the stuff that's basically making many Americans upset, where they're basically looking to consider Donald Trump as a viable alternative. And sadly, when it comes to the Blue Party, they cannot really hear this at all. And what's sad is that nothing has really changed with the Blue Party since 2012 with Barack Obama's second re-election. With Barack Obama's second re-election, this is where the tone deafness basically started to get worse, because the first term of Obama really was extremely tone deaf and refused to listen to people. No, they were just so caught up in their own world as related to him being the first Black president that you couldn't see the struggles of people. And that was shown to me in 2009 when Barack Obama did not take a leadership role, when the Senate decided that people's unemployment benefits weren't a priority. They went and had their 2-week vacation, and then Barack Obama let them have that vacation instead of saying, hey, these people need to get their bills paid, they need to get their food, they need to get their money taken care of during this recession. Instead of looking to take care of the needs of unemployed people like myself at the time, what Barack Obama did was let the Senate and the House go on vacation. And again, he had a full majority at the time, Instead of looking to meet the needs of the people, he made it all about himself. And that was the first time we saw the just complete tone deafness of the Blue Party. And that tone deafness got progressively worse in cases like Trayvon Martin's, where that coward Eric Holder didn't go out here and hold Troy Zimmerman accountable for the murder of Trayvon Martin by putting up those civil rights charges. And again, this is what started to alienate a lot of voters from Barack Obama. And it basically started laying the foundation for Donald Trump to build his base. I mean, basically the base for Donald Trump was built with Barack Obama, one partially because Donald Trump had a little bit of envy for Barack Obama, but the main reason why there was that base being built was because Barack Obama did not listen to people. And again, that not listening is what made people look at this rebel, look at this bad boy, and see him as a viable, attractive alternative, because they're not feeling like they're being heard. And when people don't feel like they're being heard by the people out here, they go out here and look to choose an alternative. And that's where Donald Trump gets his strength. But sadly, Joe Biden and the members of the Blue Party don't see where Donald Trump gets his strength as a bad boy. And what they do as out here, because they don't see where he gets his strength as a bad boy, is they think that by attacking him with these types of charges as related to these kind of trivial cases, is that they will go out here and tarnish his reputation. But in the case of somebody who is not getting their needs met, you're not tarnishing that person's reputation. All you're doing is blustering this individual's strength. And as you bluster this individual strength, you are making them more attractive. And as you make them more attractive, what you're doing is making it where that person is gaining an advantage. And they're gaining an advantage because you basically are attacking them instead of talking to the people. And that's shown with Joe Biden, basically, by the way he had this extremely paternalistic view of people out here. I mean, when I look at the Morehouse College situation, you got people walking out of the audience, and you got Joe Biden up on stage in this empty, symbolic appearance at Morehouse College, again, an institution where these Black elite go, and the average guy who was in the audience was walking out of the audience. But instead of looking to try to find out why those people were leaving, what he did was sit there and just continue making his speech, talking about his accomplishments. Again, just like a beta male, just sitting there talking about all the things that they did, not asking the people what they need. I mean, a good leader is looking to serve the people, and they're looking to ask them what they want. But with the Joe Biden presidency, what we have is an individual who doesn't listen to the people and thinks that stunts like this, which is what he's basically setting up as part of a chess move, because what he wants to do is use the conviction to go into the debate in June and attack him on the debate. And that's not really going to help his situation, because the whole thing is you're not having a relationship with the people. You're not listening to people. You're not going out here and understanding that leadership is 90% listening and 10% talking. That's something many beta male leaders don't understand. They will talk at people instead of talking to people. And the problem is that we have with the Blue Party is that they don't talk to people, because in most cases, they take people's votes for granted because they are caught up in their ideals of being the good guy, which is what the father usually does with his daughter. He gets caught up in his ideals of being the good guy in this situation because this is his daughter. And as the father of his daughter, he's thinking he's the good guy, but in actuality, he's the bad guy. And he's the bad guy because he isn't listening to his daughter. And the same thing here is going with the American people. And it's going on with the American people, and they're getting alienated. And as they're getting alienated, what they're doing is saying, hey, this guy is just not looking to meet my needs. And it's making people see Trump as more attractive as a president rather than Joe Biden, when people consider that the 3 years before the pandemic were pretty prosperous and people were actually doing fairly well, as much as people were saying Donald Trump was evil and was going to destroy the country. And people really didn't see that at all. But when they look at Joe Biden, the nice guy, they basically see the nation where we're dealing with sky high inflation. We're dealing with crime in most of the major cities. And instead of looking to address the problems, what we have are people who are a part of the Blue Party looking to gaslight people. And as they look to gaslight people, they want to tell us everything is good when you can go to the store and see that a price of groceries is sky high. You go to the restaurants and you can't even afford to go to McDonald's anymore because the burgers now are about $5 to $10 due to the dysfunctional far left policies like making minimum wage over $20 an hour. Instead of looking to build new innovative businesses, they create policies that basically hamper business, like the raising of the minimum wage that basically makes it where small business can't afford to stay operational or even have plans to expand, or putting in stupid policies like banning plastic bags and making it where the retailers cannot really afford to stay in operation, not to mention policies like bail reform, which basically make it where Pookie and Ray Ray get a chance to go through in and out of a revolving door. And people themselves, again, are suffering under these policies. But you got the tone deaf members of the Blue Party focused on Donald Trump and not focused on the quality of life of we, the people. And then they sit there and wonder why Donald Trump still has support after being convicted for this really series of asinine charges that really do nothing at the end of the day. And they do nothing at the end of the day because Donald Trump is still running his campaign. Donald Trump is able to be on the ballot all across the country. And Donald Trump being able to run his campaign and being able to even vote as related to this election, basically you have done absolutely nothing to him, the same way that that father arguing with that bad boy has done nothing to alleviate the situation that has her daughter attracted to this dude. The whole thing is you arguing with the bad boy. Again, this doesn't solve the problem. The problem is solved by the father talking to his daughter, giving his daughter affection and attention. And the U.S. government hasn't gone out here and talked to the people, look to alleviate their needs. No, they don't go out here and listen to anyone, but they want to say Donald Trump is bad. But again, what is motivating people to support Donald Trump? Critical question that wasn't answered by Obama, Hillary Clinton, or Joe Biden. Again, what is attracting people to Donald Trump? Nobody is answering that question because American people, again, are just too proud and too arrogant to sit there and say, hey, we got to, if our approaches aren't working, then we need to stop those approaches. But here in America, we go out here and because people are too proud, they do the exact same things and expect a different result. And what's happening here with the 2024 election is no different than the 2016 election, in that you have Joe Biden doing the exact same thing that Hillary Clinton did and not seeing the insanity of it at all. No, the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. And what's happening here is the Biden campaign is taking the people for granted, just like Hillary Clinton did, thinking that because they're the good guy in their own eyes, that people will see them as good and want to vote for them because they're the quote unquote good guys. But that's not the reason why people vote in elections. People don't vote on feelings, and that's what got Hillary to lose the election. And it may cause Biden to lose the election because you want to make it about good and bad based on feelings and not really make it based on logic and reason. Because yes, a Donald Trump conviction on misdemeanors, yes, that's a symbolic gesture. It's basically a Pyrrhic victory. It's a Pyrrhic victory that you got based on feelings, but you really didn't really get any sort of win. Again, it's very similar to the Cosby conviction. And yeah, you got the conviction against Bill Cosby, but the whole thing is it didn't really solve anything. And with Donald Trump's conviction, it doesn't really solve anything because it doesn't address the issues of the people. Yes, it's a symbolic gesture to say, yeah, we got a conviction against a president, former president of the United States. But at the end of the day, when you look at that conviction, it's basically symbolic, and it's symbolic of the United States going into a really bad place because basically, instead of our courts being courts based on rule of law, they are being based on feelings similar to what happened with Kevin Steele and Bill Cosby. It's based on the feelings of the prosecutor, not really based on bringing actual cases of fact, of law to people. And that was foreshadowed with the case of Jonathan Majors, where Alvin Bragg basically put this case on trial in order to get clout for himself. And again, that basically shows that our courts are being used as a vanity situation. And again, all about basically sating people's egos and not about bringing actual justice as related to these situations. And when I look at this whole thing, again, as related to our courts, they're being weaponized. And again, weaponized the same way they were weaponized against foundational Black Americans. And again, that really is quite troubling because, again, this means anybody who disagrees with the Blue Party can be targeted as related to these kind of charges. And again, that should be the thing most Americans think about. But the thing is, most Americans are so in their feelings because they're polarized that they're not thinking about the bigger picture as related to what this conviction actually means. And again, when it comes to this conviction of Donald Trump, again, at the end of the day, it really does nothing at all as related to his campaign, but make it stronger. And again, you make him stronger because when you're dealing with the bad boy gets stronger because of the attention you direct at him, not direct at the daughter. And that's where many beta male fathers get it real twisted. They get it twisted by attacking the other man because they're competing for the attention of the daughter that they neglected. And again, they only go after the guy because they don't want to go out and do the work. And that's the same thing that's going on with the Blue Party here. They don't want to do the work, so they distract you with this whole case against Donald Trump. And they distract you because they know that they don't really have a platform to run on based on Biden's record. That's what all of these cases really are about. All of these cases really are about the fact that Joe Biden doesn't have a platform to run on as related to his record because inflation is still high, crime is still out of control in many of these major cities, and when it comes to the quality of life has gotten progressively worse after the pandemic, even though Joe Biden and his people in his party said that things would get better. People are paying higher taxes. People cannot afford to buy their first home. People cannot afford to go out here and buy groceries and pay their rent. The homeless populations in states continues to increase. And instead of Americans being put first, Americans are being put last, like our veterans. I mean, we have homeless veterans here in New York who cannot even get help. The migrants come first. And a lot of Black people are being put last as related to that homeless situation. I mean, people like Jordan Neely couldn't get a debit card, but Eric Adams will fight to give debit cards to migrants. And again, this is the kind of stuff that angers Americans when they see people who enter the country illegally being given priority over themselves and see that their tax dollars are being spent on other people and they're not getting the tangibles that they are supposed to get in exchange for their tax dollars. And that's where Black people have to really take a critical look at this Trump conviction and look at this Trump conviction with indifference. We really have to take a look at this conviction with indifference because this whole theater that's being performed in front of us, again, is meant to stimulate people's emotions like it did with women, like they did in 2022, where they talked about abortion like crazy over the Roe v. Wade decision being overturned, and women got emotional out here. Women got emotional, and they gave the Blue Party that house, and basically derailed their own best interest, because these politicians should have been punished for those vaccine mandates. They should have been punished for that. But what happened was people started getting in their feelings about abortion, that they didn't really see how they were being played by these people on the chessboard as related to that issue. And when it comes to foundational Black Americans, we have to hold our resolve as related to this Trump conviction, because this does not really concern us. No, it doesn't concern us at all. No, it doesn't concern us, because our issue is a Black agenda. Our issue is getting tangibles for ourselves, and our issue is not being addressed by some empty symbolic conviction of Donald Trump, because when it comes to both parties are not presenting anything tangible on the table with a conviction of Donald Trump. When it comes to the conviction of Donald Trump, it doesn't bring anything tangible to the table. It does not address a Black agenda. And when it comes to Black people, we have to understand that that whole performative theater that was being presented as related to yesterday basically does not apply to us. No, it doesn't apply to us foundational Black Americans, because neither candidate has gone out here and offered anything on the table for us. That's what that Jamaican female bootlick didn't understand. She basically held a rally for Donald Trump in the Bronx, but never presented any sort of talking points as related to a Black agenda. And that's where Black people have to really think about their votes. Again, you're voting on your agenda. You're voting on your bullet points being met. You're voting on your points being, promises being kept. That's what you're voting for. And again, Joe Biden basically is out of the gate with nothing, because he basically threw a middle finger up at Black voters back in 2020 when he said he could do nothing for Black people, took all the Black misleaders into a room, told Black people he could do nothing for us when we took our booties to the poll to preserve his democracy. And again, if he's so concerned about his democracy being undermined by Donald Trump, then you can come in a room with Black people, not these Black misleaders, but Black people, and hammer out what tangibles you're going to give us in a Black agenda. And the critical question is, do you value Black people enough to meet our needs? Or are you just that obsessed with destroying Black people that you'll go out here and allow your country to fall? Critical question I got to ask those members of the Blue Party and all of those leftists who basically have this obsession with Black people more than Donald Trump. Because like I once disagreed with Professor Black Truth when he said that America had an obsession with Donald Trump, because it's clear to me he was right about them having more of an obsession with Black people. And again, with Donald Trump, they basically do have this whole drive to basically destroy him, but they have a drive to destroy Black people even more. Because if you look at your country and you see it's going in the wrong direction, and you know that Black people can help you, and you don't offer Black people anything, that basically shows how racist Joe Biden is, that he would rather have the country turned into ashes rather than go meet with Black people to go ask them what they would want in the form of tangibles. That's the whole thing that really is just disturbing to me. I mean, you disrespected the people who went out here and took their booties to the poll in 2020 and still refused to do anything. And you think that these performative theatrical gestures will go out here and basically sway these other groups out here, this coalition of minorities. You think that it's going to sway this coalition of minorities to go out here and vote for the Blue Party, when we clearly see that many in these groups don't have the numbers, like the Arabs who are part of the Palestinians, who say they don't want to support Joe Biden, Palestinian Americans, the Hispanics, who basically, while they are the largest minority, really aren't interested in supporting the Blue Party, because many of their positions go against their personal and spiritual beliefs. And the Asian community, which basically has been supporting Donald Trump, and even supported him, even though the Blue Party passed an anti-Asian hate crime bill. I mean, these people have been basically supporting these different positions, but they ain't coming out to support the Blue Party. But instead of going to support the black people who basically gave Joe Biden the presidency, what Joe Biden and the Blue Party do is continue to take black people for granted, still believing that they can maintain this codependent relationship that they had with people from the silent generation and the baby boomers. But that group of people are basically dying out, and basically they are not enough numbers. And again, most of the Gen Xers onward were basically turned off because we don't see anything tangible on the table for foundational Black Americans. I mean, where is Joe Biden and the Blue Party on the anti-Black hate crime bill? Because you got that anti-Asian hate crime bill right through the Congress and the Senate on the first month of Joe Biden's presidency. I mean, in the first month of Joe Biden's presidency, anti-Asian hate crime bill as related to the false narrative that Asians were being attacked, but there's no anti-Black hate crime bill, even though we've just recently had a member of the military lose his life to a possible hate crime and possibly had many foundational Black Americans attacked. I mean, I don't see anything tangible for foundational Black Americans like that anti-Black hate crime bill. I was the first to come up with that talking point because I understand anti-Black racism is more than any other racism because the foundation of white supremacy is anti-Black racism. And an anti-Black hate crime bill, basically, if this wasn't in place when George Zimmerman shot Trayvon Martin or when Daniel Penny attacked Jordan Neely, this would basically stop a lot of these racists from attacking foundational Black Americans and basically start punishing these racists, whether it be these race soldiers, these rogue police officers, these Karens, these suburban commandos who attacked Ahmaud Arbery. I mean, if this law was in place, it basically would start punishing these racists and put a boundary between them and show a value on Black life that would have a major impact. This anti-Black hate crime bill is an essential tangible as related to getting justice for foundational Black Americans. And when it comes to reparations, a lot of people want to dismiss the whole situation as related to foundational Black Americans. But reparations is important because it pays Black people economic money that will allow them to build an economy that basically will turbocharge the American economy. Moreover, it will allow foundational Black American men like myself to build and expand our businesses, allow us to build and expand our businesses so that we can go out here and be able to create a competitive economy that can compete with the global economy. That's what reparations is all about, because it's about paying people for the past of slavery, discrimination, Jim Crow, and the current and ongoing discrimination that prevents people like myself from being able to access the job market. I mean, basically, it would help Black people and it would really help the economy, because if you got billions to send to the Ukraine, why don't you have money for foundational Black Americans? Critical question I got to ask regarding the Biden campaign. I mean, billions of dollars for the Ukraine to preserve their democracy, but you don't want to go and ask the Black people to help preserve your own. I mean, you would rather let America fall because of your racism and not want to help Black people. And that's the most backwards thing about this whole thing regarding this Donald Trump conviction. You have an opportunity to help Black people and get help from Black people, but many of these same people in the Blue Party are too proud to say, hey, let's go talk to those Black people. If we want their votes, let's go offer them some tangibles. Let's go do something for Black people. No, these paternalists like Joe Biden basically think they can give you empty gestures like a Juneteenth holiday, which means nothing for Black people, or some statue as related to the Black Wall Street, or some old trivial things. I mean, these things don't matter, and that's why Black people really are not looking to participate in this whole election this time, because there's nothing on the table at this point. I mean, that's what's really sad about this whole situation is there's nothing, they would rather not talk to black people who basically are the biggest voting bloc in this country. I have to agree with Mr. Superboy on that. We're a lot larger than people think. And again, when it comes, they would rather let the country fall rather than look to go talk to black people. And that's the saddest part about the Biden presidency. They participate in these performative political theatrics as related to Donald Trump, thinking that this is going to sway voters when most voters are looking at the state of the union. They're looking at their paycheck not being able to pay their bills. They're looking at going to the grocery store and not being able to eat as related to getting groceries. They're looking at having to choose between the phone bill and the light bill. They're looking at cars that cost over $100,000. They're looking at homes that cost $1 million. They're seeing the American dream being taken away from them. And instead of that, what they want us to focus on is Donald Trump is a bad guy. Well, you're not doing very well yourself, because that's what nice guys do. The nice guy will sit there and say, oh, the other guy's the bad guy, and then sit there and abuse you in a codependent relationship, going out here gaslighting you and telling you how they're the good guy. And this is what the Trump conviction basically feels like. It basically feels like, hey, you're telling me about what this guy has done, and he's the bad guy. He's got a conviction, but you're not seeing a conviction of spirit as related to the way you have basically abused the American people, taken the American people for granted, and not really gone out here and done what the American people want or the American people need. No, you haven't really listened to the people. And again, this disconnect with the Blue Party really shows how they're, again, about serving themselves and not really about serving we the people. That is the big problem I see with the Blue Party. They're not really about serving we the people. No, it's all about them and all about their ego. That's what Alvin Bragg was basically all about. He was in his ego. Yeah, I got Donald Trump, just like I got Jonathan Majors, again, looking to get this clout with these people in the Blue Party, hoping to apply for his next job. This was not really, again, about justice for Alvin Bragg. It was just about him getting that credit for his next job, similar to what happens with many of these other bootlicks like Fannie Willis or Letitia James. It's all about them getting that credit for their next job. And that's the same attitude that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama had, that they were out here looking to get their next job. It wasn't really about looking to meet the needs of the people. It was just about, hey, I want to be able to put some bullet points on my resume. Yeah, I'm a DA. I took down Jonathan Majors. I took down Donald Trump. But all of these, but New York City is rampant with crime. I mean, we have all sorts of wild and violent incidents in the city, and no prosecution of them because the Blue Party won't swallow its pride on bail reform. People like hard-headed Carl Heastie and Andrea Stewart Cousins in the legislature refuse to say that bail reform is a failure because Pookie and Ray Ray basically are wreaking havoc. And instead of admitting that your policy is a failure, they continue to go on and say, oh, Donald Trump is evil. But what's more evil than letting Pookie and Ray Ray wreak havoc in the streets, punching people in the streets, smoking up and getting high, and acting on their impulses by doing things like pulling emergency brakes on trains and, again, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I mean, when I look at the Blue Party, they sit there and are like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, straining at the necks of Donald Trump, but swallowing camels as related to the state of the union. And again, really big time hypocrites, because they sit there and talk about, yeah, we got a conviction against Donald Trump. Well, that conviction means nothing because you're not really giving us anything in the form of tangibles. I mean, what does that mean to the average foundational Black American? Yeah, Donald Trump is convicted on some charges as related to falsifying business records. What does that do for the average everyday American? Critical question I have to ask, outside of sating the feelings of a few on the left. I mean, after your feelings get sated, you still got to go out here and work a job and be paid not enough money to be able to cover your bills. not paid enough money to be able to even be able to get groceries, not paid enough to be able to even aspire to save up enough to even own a home, not paid enough to be able to even take care of your basic needs. I mean, what does that do for you, average everyday American? A Donald Trump conviction, what does it do for the average everyday American? That's the question that sadly the Biden campaign doesn't ask. Yeah, it may make people feel a certain way for a minute about Donald Trump, but they go back to being in their situation where, again, yeah, there are plenty of jobs, but you need three of them just to cover the bills. You can't really afford to go out here and get the things that you dream of. I mean, this is that there's, again, when you're disconnected and detached from real people and real problems, you don't really see how meaningless a Donald Trump conviction is. Yeah, you talk about how Donald Trump is a crook, but Bill Clinton basically was out here doing all sorts of stuff. And again, showing the double standards here as related to two candidates. And again, doesn't really show me anything as related to this conviction. I mean, a Trump conviction to me means absolutely nothing because neither side is addressing my issues as a foundational heterosexual Black American man. I'm not seeing anything on the table as related to our issues. I mean, I don't see Trump coming to the Black community to talk about tangibles. He'll talk to a Jamaican bootlick, a tether, but he ain't talking to no foundational Black American about our issues. And the same thing with Joe Biden. Nobody's talking about our issues, and that's the real serious problem. Nobody is talking to Americans about American issues. No, we got a Congress sending money to Ukraine to fight a war about a democracy, but ironically ignoring the democracy here and the people here, taking people for granted. And that's a textbook dysfunctional, again, beta male behavior, because the beta male will chase clout and take people for granted. And again, when people see that they're not getting their needs met, they go out here and seek out an alternative. They seek out an alternative because what they do is see, hey, this guy, I've tried to talk to him. I've tried to reason with him. He just refuses to listen. He blows me off. And that's what the rebellious daughter does. She possibly tried to talk to her father multiple times, and the father he's so caught up in his job, so caught up in chasing clout at the office, so busy caught up in trying to impress and keep up with the Joneses that he basically neglects his family. And the same thing is happening here with our country. They're basically neglecting our country, neglecting the people in the country, neglecting the whole state of the union, all because they want to keep chasing clout with these other countries and chase ideologies. And again, this is what leftists do. Leftists want to be caught up in their ideals that they don't see real people. And that's the real problem here with the Donald Trump conviction, is it that it shows the disconnect of America from its own people. I mean, our government is serving itself and not serving the people. Our businesses in like Hollywood and Madison Avenue are not serving the people. And that's shown as related to all the box office failures. I mean, you have a bunch of old, disconnected people, and they're not hearing anyone. That's the real problem here as related to this whole Trump conviction. Again, the issues are not being heard of the people. People's feelings get sated for a moment. And the thing is that, again, when you sate the feelings of a handful of people and don't really hear the majority of people, it basically leads to a situation where you may not be able to go out here and think things are going to go the way you thought, because a lot of people on Biden's presidency, he thinks that he's going to be able to win the presidency by discrediting Donald Trump. But like the daughter who is with the bad boy boyfriend, it's not going to be able to appeal to that man, to that daughter. The daughter is looking, saying, this guy is not meeting my needs. I've tried to talk to him. I've tried to reason with him. I've tried to get his attention. And they go out here and marry the bad boy. They marry the bad boy because at least the bad boy will get them, one, social clout with other women, and two, will go out here and allow them to be able to get somebody who pays them attention. He may call her names, he may call her stupid and all sorts of things, but she can get attention because that father, again, he's so detached from people that he can't see that he's the problem in the situation, because in his eyes, he's still the good guy, but he's done nothing good for anyone outside of just going through the motions. And that's what the Biden presidency basically felt like, an old man going through the motions and not really engaging with us, not really engaging with anyone at all. And when it comes to foundational Black Americans, he wanted nothing to do with us. And I say we should have nothing to do with him. We need to stay home on November 5th, because right now, at this point, there's nothing being offered to me as a Black man, nothing being offered as related to tangibles. And I could care less about a Trump conviction because I don't see anything tangible on the table for me to go out here and put in a vote for either of these candidates. Now, I'm going to be coming back at about 11:15 or so with another live stream. And in that live stream, I'm going to be talking about Vivica Fox and her being too old for dating. And I'm going to be taking all of these old washed up actresses to the barbecue. So I'm going to take a minute to go through the chat. Yeah, I did an early stream. Good morning, Yukasama 2001. Good morning, Jay Adjacent. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, G-Man. Juwan Buchanan says, what? Yeah, but Trump is, I have to agree with Juwan Buchanan. He says they see our government as corrupt. And again, this is making people like Donald Trump even more, because we don't really see the government serving us. So what's going on, Wall Street Tech? Midoriya. Yeah, I think it's going to backfire, Juwan Buchanan. I look at it right now, it's going to backfire as related to trying to make people see Biden as appealing, because it's a classic nice guy move. Classic nice guy move, and that nice guys always think that they can make themselves appear to be the good guy by attacking the other guy, but it makes him more attractive. And a lot of guys don't see this as related to how it works with politics. It works just like the girlfriend, in that you're making the woman see you as less attractive because you got to go underhanded and go sideways instead of showing what you have to offer. Good morning, Mogul Maze. Glad to see you here. What's going on, Eric Bird? Eric Bird, thank you for the super chat. What's going on, Chris Radio? You can catch Mr. Chris every Wednesday at 3 o'clock on NiceRadioNetwork.com and on the barbecue for my live streams. And yeah, Mogul Maze, they are using shaman tactics on people to try to make us support Joe Biden. But the whole thing is nobody's really supporting Joe Biden, because they can look at the economy, and that's why they're not supporting him. And yeah, we are headed towards a bad situation, Juwan. Because both of these sides are not really looking at how, they're not looking to serve the people, they're looking to serve themselves. And that's basically what's got the country's democracy in a bad place, is that they're not looking to serve the people, just looking to serve themselves. So that's the whole situation with it. But the whole thing is we're not getting that leadership, like Head Ninja says. We're not getting that leadership. We're just getting guys who don't listen to anyone. What's going on, Ahmad Phillips? And basically, when I look at, and what's going on, Keating Rock, I'm glad to see you here. Yeah, Alvin Bragg, he was in his feelings. He was just in his ego, but he's not looking at serving the people. And like Juwan said, it's like basically this made Trump even stronger. He's raising more money, and he's basically going to wind up going out here and getting stronger as related to it. Now, J.J. Marr says that one of the biggest problems with Black politics regarding the Black masses, yeah, a lot of Black folks aren't thinking critically about this situation, but this situation doesn't even regard us. We need to come in when tangibles are offered on the table. And until they offer tangibles on the table, we're just going to stay home and just stay home, and it's related to things. And that's the way I would do things. Now, I always look at this whole case of things in this whole situation with Donald Trump. It's a complete mess. And again, this will basically be a political disaster. And again, it shows me, like the late David Carroll had said, no hope, no change in the classic no hope, no change for the Negro. Nothing has really changed since 2012, I believe, when David Carroll made that video as related to America's politics. And sadly, many people don't really see how a Trump conviction shows us how disconnected and detached the Democrats are as related to our issues, and shows us how deeply disconnected and detached all of the Democrats are as related to dealing with the American people. Instead of looking to listen to the American people, they keep shouting at us and talking down to us because they think that they're better than us. And most of the American people, they just keep thinking they have to keep voting for these two parties. I mean, that's the other sad part about this whole situation. We, the people, don't want to take our power as people and start picking our own candidates. And again, picking our own candidates, because this was supposed to be a government made by the people for the people. But the saddest part is we get caught up in all of this different rhetoric, Biden and Trump, when, again, people like the late David Carroll tried to tell us that we need to be the ones picking the candidates because, again, if we pick the candidates, they would not be having to deal with the courts. No, we would be picking the candidates on Election Day. And the irony of this is that Joe Biden's people say, oh, this is going to be decided on Election Day. Well, it's decided for me that I'm going to stay home on Election Day because I don't see anything tangible on the table. I don't see anything tangible on this table that incentivizes me to go out here and vote, especially for a guy who disrespected Black people right after he got the election. I mean, nothing here on the table as related to this whole Trump conviction. Yeah, you got an empty symbolic conviction against Donald Trump, but that doesn't change the issue of tangibles, doesn't change the state of our union's economy, doesn't change the fact that Biden's policies made America so unaffordable to the average everyday American, doesn't change his track record at all. And again, like the nice guy will sit there and destroy a person's life and then say, oh, everything is still good because he wants to be good based on feelings, not seeing the damage he did to people as related to their lives. And that's what Joe Biden doesn't really see. He doesn't see the damage he did to the average everyday American. And a Trump conviction isn't what we want. And when it comes to foundational Black Americans, what we want are tangibles in exchange for our vote. So I'm going to wrap up tonight's, not today's, impromptu show. I'm going to wrap up today's impromptu show. And I will be back at 11:15 with tonight's official show. So everybody have a good afternoon. Everybody have a good lunch. And I'll be back in a couple of hours.